This is a project mainly I and a few others have been working on. Special thanks to @Starscream_edits and Artemis Prime for greatly contributing. Note: this is a Bayverse power scaling video. Not a normal power tier list. This will use only a couple of the Bayverse comic feats statements. But, with more comic feats, you can get the scaling for them even higher. However, there are Bayverse comics or the UK Titan series. I can't find them anywhere online. If anyone knows where to find them, please let me know in the comments. Anyways, it is usual to start off with AP then durability, but I will start with lowest to highest stats in a nonlinear fashion. First, let's scale a feat from Quintessa, who moved Cybertron into Earth's orbit. This feat was achieved not only without the staff, but casually. Quintessa could relax and talk while the planet traveled throughout space. Thanks to someone, specifically a good calcer I know, who did a calculation for the kinetic energy required to pull this off. Appreciate it. Using the moon as a starting distance, the base material is iron, 20% volume of the moon. The planet had whole so guaranteed volume, and 13 hours to travel to Earth, means 8,213.675 meters per second. The AP result was 3.116 zetatons of TNT, small planet level. Optimus scales to this as during the final battle Quintessa strikes him with these same powers, which he survived it. In this scene, it should be noted Quintessa was not using her full power, but she was still using more power than she did to move Cybertron. She was enraged, evident by the fact she was moments away from succeeding her long-awaited goal, which was killing Unicron and reviving Cybertron, and Optimus knocked her back. This literally foiled her plans. In the end, serious Quintessa is obviously greater than casual Quintessa, with the feat likely even higher. Optimus tanked it. This places AOE TLK Prime's durability at a guaranteed small planetary scale. Now let's move on to attack potency, basing off of the Star Harvester, which eats stars. Optimus destroyed it. The machine guides a beam that could eat stars, converting them into energon. To pull this off, the harvester should have to be sturdy enough to withstand such power, right? The harvester won't shoot straight, otherwise this barrel is used for zero waste of resources, so it still could be scaled. But of course, devices or machines that don't always scale to their raw power is a valid argument, with a great example of this being the Death Star from Star Wars. And even common guns for more example. The collection of the star can be done through other, technical means. Its systems and machinery wouldn't need to be a fraction of its power to even do so, unless proven otherwise. So, there is only a way to prove the Star Harvester truly scales to its power. 1. Upon breach, energy clearly sparks out uncontrollably. This proves the energy really is bottled in by the machine. 2. The barrel guides the beam for greater speed and precision. We know it actually does, since if the machine didn't need the barrel and its durability, it wouldn't be there. There is once again no proof this part is redundant. 3. The matrix energy destroys the supporting pieces, such as the exhaust pipes, yet couldn't do the same to the barrel a few seconds before. With how dense the matrix's energy is, the machine would have exploded if it couldn't withstand it. Since Optimus destroyed the base of the metallic barrel, this makes the feat 4-seat star level. It is consistent in portrayal too, as Jetfire said once Prime got his parts, he would get a power he'd have never known, and to fulfill your destiny, meaning the weaponry and upgrade was certainly special. And seen a few moments later, the weapon sure does pack a blast. The Fallen tanked this shot, and Optimus overpowered and punched through him shortly after. So base Optimus can arguably be star level, and his jet-powered mode in the Fallen are guaranteed star level. But to back up the idea of base Prime scaling, this means Optimus would have really just needed the Jetfire parts to fly and efficiently shoot the Harvester without getting close, as he could always beat the Fallen without. However, to make things clear, yes, with the upgrade he did get even stronger than before. But let me explain why he possibly could have always beat the Fallen. 1. Jetfire's arsenal was rendered useless to the Fallen, as he tanked every gunfire. 2. Fallen also ripped the Jetfire upgrade apart mid-battle, but couldn't hurt Prime, though he could knock him back. 3. Via the movie databook, Optimus's base power level is 10 and the Fallen 5+. 4. The Fallen feared coming to Earth with Prime's presence. Before you say Fallen was being cautious, Fallen knew very well what Prime was capable of and what other Primes could do. It's literally a bloodline-linked conclusion. If Optimus is an even somewhat threat, they are relative. 5. Optimus's own capabilities and weaponry, Energon blades, are shown to actually harm the Fallen, unlike Jetfire's equipment, making base Prime star level at a bare minimum. Although he was stronger with the Jetfire upgrade, with this reasoning, he'd still always been superior to the Fallen no matter what. Now there is some reasoning for why he was never stronger than the Fallen. Reasons can be that the Fallen just wanted to avoid any trouble, this implies they can pose a threat, or he has no clue of their capabilities, or simply that Prime had potential to get stronger, etc. The comics had plenty of reasons for why the Fallen couldn't leave the Nemesis. Those are non-canon, and the movie clearly heads in its own direction. All of this falls under even more assumption than it should have, opposing what's clearly shown, and doesn't work when the Fallen can literally tell a Prime's strength. And this still doesn't debunk Base Prime being stronger than the Fallen. There are two only plausible reasons at best. It is that when jet-powered Prime was shot by Megatron's fusion cannon, he didn't get sent flying, as opposed to in the forest battle where in Base he did. But you can also make the argument that Prime was already damaged in the forest fight, hence why taking that shot blasted him in final battle it didn't. You can say that he also got sent flying by TF-1 Megatron's cannon, but you'd need to prove it's stronger than his cannon in ROTF. If so, then Base Prime got sent flying by this yet jet-powered didn't, so he'd been tougher than ever. And Fallen avoiding Prime could be an assumption that only a Prime would be at his level, and that being able to tell if he's alive isn't strength-based. My debunk is 1. Optimus may have been damaged in the forest battle, but it doesn't at all warrant his durability decreasing by several times out of nowhere. 2. We don't get a clear scene of how Jetfire Prime countered Megatron's blaster. Base Prime might have done the same, but I suppose it is somewhat plausible. But these reasons all border on literal headcanon. It's far more likely that Base Prime was stronger in Base than otherwise may be decent arguments suggesting not. But finally, from a narrative standpoint, Jet Prime being only stronger with the upgrade, and without it, only inferior to Fallen, fits in more compared to if he was able to have won before, but just got handicapped mid-battle, and needed a reboost to get to a level he was initially already at. On the outside, this would make Jetfire's sacrifice feel pointless, even if you factor in the obvious reason for why it would have still been needed regardless. So in conclusion, Base Prime does in fact scale to the Fallen. Moving on to the Fallen. He has infinite power drawn from the very birth of the universe, allowing to fire off controlled blasts possessing the awesome power to unmake creation at will. These powers burn at a rate of 88 kilojoules per second, and can penetrate rock as deep as 10 miles. This is only the burn rate and range of the blast though, it's actually a burst of infinite power. However, the Fallen does not scale to his attack potency as he must regularly vent it to remain corporeally existent. But it is worthy to note the Fallen is a transdimensional being. This classes the Fallen to universal plus through being a 4D dimensional being, which makes him superior to lower dimensional objects or beings. Others like Prime could one-tap his armor. And if you do some research, you'll find out that comics and novels Fallen are almost featless without the movie databooks. The comics don't state the Fallen could unmake creation, they don't even explain the extent his powers, neither what his shoulder thingies and vents aka emitter arrays are, nor what they're meant for. The emitter arrays vents are what allow him to use his power for bursts. Also, all of Fallen's powers draw from the same source, therefore having dimensional traveling and telekinesis confirms he still has the unquantifiable power, but he is just using it for different reasons. This doesn't mean his power is only finite, as saying this would be opposing what we're told throughout various media. It was questionable on why he didn't use his powers, but the only reason he didn't use this main ability was because, well, he couldn't. At least, not on Primes. His powers don't work on those related to him, evident by the flashback where he didn't use them against his brothers, that is also why he didn't in the finale. Don't get me wrong, Fallen could still use all of his abilities on anyone else though. But in the end, Fallen still holds Uni Plus power with Uni Plus durability. Another thing I'd like to point out regarding the validity and canonicity of these sources. All of this knowledge literally comes from the official movie and its media. It's been explained and justified with detail and reason, but specifically this book comes from the UK Titan book. The UK Titan comics are canon. If you ask me, why is it specifically the UK Titan book? There was another movie databook but it was flawed, to some, as its lore was that there were 12 primes, and that the Fallen butchered his brothers. But in the movie, it was actually 7 total primes, having the 6 sacrifice themselves to hide the Matrix, which in turn actually supports the events of the movie etc. UK Titan fixes the error of the first book, by making it lore accurate. Logically the first book was fine, and a few different events that are usually so minor to the strength of the character shouldn't matter at all, but it was worth it to find an even more accurate book. The comics are almost useless for this scale. This did include one statement from a comic, that being the transdimensional statement, but it doesn't disprove anything. Even if we had to use comics alone, different events don't debunk the scaling. They don't have time or enough resources to have them do things like explode universes or anything grand scale just to get the point across that they're so strong. At best, this is a minor inconvenience which proves nothing, as this won't mean a character's strength or feats statements is somehow invalidated over something so little. Unless, of course, it's clear there's a difference between the tie-in, aka blatantly obvious or implied there's a contradiction. But, there's no contradiction for the scale. If you want to use the, why did they get hurt by human guns, the comics are stronger, argument, well, updated video about that coming soon. Now regarding TF's Cybertronian weaponry. It is consistently shown that the strength of the weapons aren't linearly ranked, and that's not a bad thing. Optimus's blasters, which have a yield of 4 kilotons small town level plus Ironhide's double cannons pack 10-12 kilotons town level, and yet they're stronger than Prime's ion blasters. Most would expect the leader's firearm to be greater. For weaponry, it was never implied to be so linear. Weapons can be stronger, or weaker, than the wielder of a different rank. The gaps between even other guns can be wide in comparison. There's also no reason for standard weaponry even beyond your average Cybertronian gun to be stronger than Prime himself, unless it's specifically explained to be on another caliber. Also, Prime's energon blades seem to be of his own specialty. Interestingly enough, Prime's energon blades do actual damage as opposed to his blasters. This is for 2007 DOTM Optimus. Anyways, it is important to note that characters like Demolisher could be harmed and killed by 4 to 12 kilotons of firepower, making him in the low tiers of the verse small town level. Before you say, well, if such a high being struggled against a small town level opponent, surely they're not as strong as you claim. Well, that is false. Considering the strength of these characters from a narrative standpoint, Optimus and Ironhide had never struggled with Demolisher. He ran the moment he was interrogated, also massive in height, yet was immediately put down by guns that scale significantly less than the wielders of them. This is not an anti-feat to the higher scaled characters, neither is it a flaw in the scale. These feats consistently use the highest characters of the verse. The movies openly tell you there are huge power gaps in certain areas. This upscales characters such as Bumblebee, who could fight on par with Fatigued Prime. The verse can be scaled higher to whatever extent one might want, even beyond Universal Plus, but my conclusion is, peak of the Bayverse, star level to Universe level plus.